Welcome back to Brokers of Secrets. In this episode, we're going to talk about something that I'm extremely passionate about. So I've spent the last 10 years understanding the model behind what drives humans. And previously, I've created things like the loop quiz with my team. I've created different personality sort type tests, but they're really not personality tests. They were ways for us to understand the human and what drives them. And I've had so many different iterations of different tests, different quizzes. Finally, we've come to something that I believe actually explains the engine behind what drives someone. Now, there are actually not just one engine. There are 3 engines. I'm not going to tell you all 3 of them yet. And I'm actually in the midst of working on this, you can call it a quiz or a test, but it's simpler than ever, easier to take very fast, but it actually exposes the engine and how you're using the engines. I'll actually be explaining the first engine in this episode, and it's called the engine of safety. Because of many human endeavors that we ever partake in or participate in life, safety is one of the core things that we consider. Why do people not want to go skydiving or bungee jumping, or why is there fear of height? Why do people fear public speaking? This actually has something to do with that safety engine. Now, this engine is crucial to understand because if you go on overdrive or underdrive of the engine, you get completely different outcomes. If you're overdriving on safety, you become so controlling over the outcome. Oftentimes, it causes the person to go into a stalling mode because they're so concerned about how safe they are. On the underside, if you're underdriving the engine, what happens is then you might be unstable. You might avoid looking at accounting numbers. You might want to not have hard discussions or necessary discussions in a relationship because you're wanting to underuse the engine of safety. And those around you may feel unsafe. When it comes to the politics, the regimes around the world, the governments around the world, you'll find that they have overdrive or underdrive, and that creates different outcomes. And sometimes people like to blame the governments or the whatever, but the problem is when you have an overdrive on safety with people who actually don't comply when there's overdrive, or when there's an underdrive, meaning less structure, less monitoring, but with people that are highly volatile, you're going to have massive problems. And if we were to zoom in into one single household, if the parents are extremely lax and the child or the children grow up in an environment where they are encouraged and distracted to do things that may not be good without structure. If the parents are really lax, the children become wild, for lack of better terms, right? Undisciplined. When you consider that from a micro or macro perspective, you can begin to see that, wow, the engine needs to be balanced to produce the outcome. It needs to be adapted to the environment, to the outcome that we want. And that's just the first engine. There are 2 other engines that are crucial to understand, that are really important to understand, that will actually allow you to see and understand your own human nature and what drives you. Now, let's dive into the safety engine more. And let's talk about why we need to understand it and what's inside of it and how you can use it. In fact, as you listen to this, you'll be able to self-identify and know whether you're overdrive or underdrive. And that'll give you an understanding of how you can get back to balance. And if you can get back to balance, safety will become something you naturally have. Safety in resources, safety in relationships, including romantic ones, safety in your family, safety in your business and or in your career. If you have safety in all of these things, well, I think that you're going to be really pleased. So that's just the first layer. That's just the first layer. And all humans need safety. And then the next episodes, we're going to talk about the other engines, the other two engines. By the time you listen to this, we'll possibly even have this little quiz or test out. And it's easy to take. It's very short compared to what we had before. And, if you've ever taken our loop quiz or other quizzes, they were longer. This is short and easy because the mathematics behind the engine is actually far simpler. However, the understanding it gives you will be more sophisticated. And you'll see that the loops were more on the surface level. Like if someone has a repeating problem, it actually, if you drill down to the core of it, you understand that it's actually, for example, if someone has a loop of not completing their work on time and they're distracted by other things, it's not necessarily that they're undisciplined or lazy. It may be because their safety engine is already balanced, but some other engine is not actually on point. So they don't want to go beyond what is safe to them. So safety engine might be on point, but the other engines might be off. And we'll talk about that in the next episode. So hopefully by then, or the very last episode in the series, you will have the quiz that you can take. Now, let's talk about the why you need to understand safety. How often do people need safety? I think always, right? Would you want to date someone that you don't feel safe around? No, you wouldn't, right? Would you want to stay in a relationship where you don't feel safe about the other person? And I don't just mean physical safety. I'm talking about, are they going to be emotionally safe? Are they going to actually stick around? What if they leave out of the blue? What if they disappear because they're distracted by something else, someone else? You don't want to be left in the dust. You don't want someone who makes you feel unsafe. Well, that feeling of safety, it's not balanced. So why is that important to understand? Well, because when you begin any relationship, if you can begin to see whether their engine, listen carefully, whether their engine is overdrive or underdrive, then you can see if you're a good match. If you're an overdrive person and they're an underdrive person, maybe you'll balance each other out, or maybe you'll drive each other crazy, right? So you need to begin to examine where you're at and where they're at. Let's say you're dating a partner who is on overdrive, super controlling. Hey, you can't go out with your friends because who knows if there are other guys or other girls around. Or, hey, you can't do this because we have to control the finances in our relationship. Or, oh, you can't do that. You can't do this. You can't do that. We need to do this. We have to have this structure, have to have that structure. It sounds a little rigid to some people, but some people love it, right? So you need to know, are you okay with that overdrive? But here's the thing. It's not just about you being okay or not. It's that overdrive on safety can actually yield problems long term. That actually can stall progress if someone is not flexible. They will never make bets, right? For example, let's say 10 years down the road, and there's a massive opportunity to invest in something truly good. Now, of course, this is not investment advice, but let's say there's a massive opportunity and you absolutely believe it will be great, but your partner's still on overdrive in safety, overanalyzing the deal until it's too late. So in one area of life, you can actually tell a lot in what may happen in other areas of life. I'll actually tell you a personal story. So my father was always on overdrive growing up when it comes to safety. And my mother was slightly on the underdrive side. And my mother's willing to make bets, but they're actually really wise bets. But my father's like, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. And even when it came time for me to move away, because I wanted to leave and go pursue my dreams and do the things I wanted to do, even as a teenager. And my father's like, no way. He's not leaving, definitely not leaving the country. He's not moving away from Hong Kong. He's not going to the States. No way. My mother's like, no, you need to let him do it. He needs to go and pursue his own passion, right? Now that discussion went on for months and months and months. I think it actually went on for like a year and a half. Finally, my father gave in. But he was on overdrive, so made it very difficult to negotiate. Now, it also showed up in his business life. he would take forever to make an investment decision. And when he did make a decision, he would overanalyze and slow his action, therefore making the business too slow to adapt, which then caused the business to fail at the end. Now, you may say, where would that be coming from? Well, he observed traumatic events with money when he was a younger kid. If you listen to my early episodes from this season, you'll hear the story of my grandfather. So my father witnessed some traumatic things when it comes to money. Therefore, he's on overdrive when it comes to money. And that personality sort of, well, it became his personality in other areas of his life as well. So being on overdrive with a partner who's slightly on the underdrive caused a lot of conflict over the years. A lot of conflict over the years. Now, on the flip side, if someone's on the underdrive, maybe they're building a business. Maybe you're like, man, I'm good at what I do. I can just go and create what I create, but I don't have to do the whole enterprise structure or build a sophisticated system that I can rely on. Well, that's being on the underdrive. When an entrepreneur finally needs to hire a CEO to grow the business into an enterprise, the CEO who's running the corporate, thriving corporate business, the enterprise, is oftentimes on the balance, very balanced side. So I always encourage people to be on the balance side regardless, and become flexible if needs be to go to one side or another. That is something that I want you to have control over rather than just, this is the default, I can't change. And that's why we created, obviously, all of the things we do in Upgrade to design, resolve, ruminate, and make full decisions. All of those skills that we teach, the sub-skills that we teach, all help you shift your engine to a more balanced position. And if needs be able to push it one way or another more. So I'll give you a final tip. When you begin to look at safety, you can tell how safe you feel in your current situation. And you can tell how safe you feel in your current environment, current relationship, current business, current work, current career. All of those feelings has less to do with the actual safety of the situation. It has more to do with your engine. And if your engine is a good fit to the environment. If your engine right now, regardless if it's overdrive or underdrive, isn't a good fit for the environment, you are going to feel unsafe. It's not always that you have to be balanced to feel safe. It's that if your engine is a mismatch or misaligned with your environment, you have to upgrade. You have to become more flexible, because the person who has the most flexibility, they will end up having control over their engine, and therefore they will end up having control over the situation. So keep in mind, if you feel unsafe, it has less to do with the actual environment, but more to do with the mismatch of your engine, whether being underdrive or overdrive in the current environment. Go to the next episode and we're going to talk about the next engine, which is very exciting. And you will see why you can be, or how you can be, the most powerful version of you.